Their technology will never be a direct threat to our experience and judgment.
And that's not too far off of what I experienced. Got a use case for you today. This is part 2 and what we started to talk about in our previous episode, which covered what was happening inside a tech company failure and what that means for you in this AI craziness that's happening where AI is writing the rules monthly. So in part 1, we were talking about how a new competitor entered the market that commoditized or made abundant one of our key strengths, which was manufacturing capacity. All of a sudden, they flooded the market with slightly less capable, but quickly producible, bigger volume than we could ever hope to match delivery into the marketplace. And if you may recall, well, go back to that previous episode and look for the rest on that. There was a useful tip there. At least I hope that it was. What I want to focus on today was the argument that we had in the executive conference room about the technology implications of what was happening in the marketplace, not just with this new competitor, but for the company that I was working for at the time. So I'm sitting in the executive conference room with the executive team, and the chief engineer is now at this point upset because of a question that I had prompted about technology that I had experienced before coming to this company. And his response was literally fist on the table. Magnetic tape will never be a serious threat to optical storage. Think about that. At the time, now that dates this a little bit, but at the time I knew of systems that were already fielded that he did not know about that I couldn't share about because of how I had learned that information. And no, I wasn't involved in any kind of classified super secret stuff. It was just working in the aerospace industry. I was aware of applications, of tests, of things that had been fielded, but that weren't, through NDAs, things of that nature, were not discussed openly. I couldn't share that from one company to the next when I moved companies. So I was attempting to influence him into thinking about his core technology differently. Now, the context of what they were doing, to be fair to the company, our product was designed to do fast capture of bursts of data. Think scientific experiments, telemetry, from big radar bursts from if you're sensing like FAA radar, where there's a lot of data that comes in fast. That wasn't one of the applications, but just to give you a sense of, so it's things that short burst, ton of data at one time. And they had just set a record at their trade show where they were, I believe the number was 457 megabits per second onto mag tape. Woo, woohoo. Today that's kind of like, really? Are you kidding me? We're running into gigahertz, but we're running solid state. This was still part of the transition from analog to truly solid state digital, which is very important context. Solid state was already working its way into the marketplace. It was a larger trend. I'm going to talk about an error that I made and then a larger error that the leadership team made in this frame. So being honest here, the error I made was opening my statement with optical storage technology, because yes, that was the current next step. That was not the real problem though. The problem was the trend to true digital, the trend that was going to make mag tape storage obsolete because you can store at the speed of silicon. Takes all the mechanical stuff out, takes all of the expertise that this company had in designing and manufacturing these complicated pieces of equipment that had to be useful in, think weather station in Antarctica kind of environments, right? They're very good at that. And they had been a leader in their marketplace, a leader in the technology for 30 years at this point when we're having this argument. The mistake I made was focusing on optical, not the trend, because the trend was to digital. Solid state was coming. The problem was it was still too expensive at that time. But customers were already using it, which is why the company that I was working for at the time we were having this argument, there were 300 people employed by the company. That was down from a peak of 1,100 because their marketplace was shifting. More competitors were coming in because it was a lucrative market. Right? The technology was shifting from analog to digital. So as customers were buying new systems, they were replacing what we were offering with emerging technology. And the chief engineer's vision was pound on the table. That'll never be a threat. The larger error that the whole leadership team made was missing that trend to going, you know what, clock's ticking. This technology is going away. There is a shift in the marketplace that's happening. We don't know when it's going to happen, but sooner or later, pure digital, pure solid state is going to replace what we're doing with magnetic tape, which is a 30-year-old technology at that point. How is that playing out in your market? This is what this has to do with AI today. AI is shifting the marketplace every 30 to 90 days. When is that going to impact your core offering? Hold that thought for a second. Let's come back to the use case here. Well, no, let me follow up on that. Here's the point that I want to make with that. Here's something that's useful that you can apply based on that concept. And we're going to make sure I get this question right. So there's two questions to ask. The first one is, what is truly your unique value? What is it? What is your equivalent of their technology, or I should say, I was proud to be part of the team. Got some more lessons. What we were doing. And in that shift, what is your equivalent that you've built your business around to their high-speed mag tape system as the best in the world at doing that? What are you best in the world at doing that makes your business viable? The second question is, what happens if and when that becomes completely obsoleted? That becomes no longer valuable in the marketplace because AI has enabled either AI directly or AI has enabled some other kind of technology that now completely replaces yours at a scale and at a price that there's just no way you're going to be competitive. It no longer lasts. You go from mag tape storage to, hundreds of megabits per second storage on mag tape to gigabits in silicon on solid state. That type of a shift, right? The mag tape and that application could not survive. What are you going to do? How are you going to adapt to that? Is that going to happen to your business? Maybe not. Maybe so. If you walk through those two questions as a thought exercise with your leadership team or with people that, your closest advisors, and think that through, if you never get disrupted like that, what is the downside from taking the time? And we're talking just a couple hours. Don't make this a month-long project. Make it a lunch meeting or an evening thing with a couple of valued advisors to say, hey, what's the response if this happens? To think that through. Now you're in a stronger position and you can do things like what this company missed. So back to the use case here, that company had an incredibly 30 years resulted in an incredibly solid maintenance contract base because of what they did, this precision mechanical, right? There's so much mechanical going on in that type of a system that required maintenance and calibration in the field. Over 30 years, they had built up recurring contracts that provided a healthy cash flow. That afforded them the opportunity, if they had chosen to pursue an adaptation. What are we going to innovate? Do we design something new? Can we acquire something? Can we join venture somewhere? Because they've got this customer base. Where does the value in the company shift? Is it the customer relationships and the contracts so that we can join venture, pull somebody else's solid state technology in and not have to make that internal leap? Because that's a big jump. Can the existing team make that leap? Not everybody. The unfortunate reality is on a team of 300, not everybody's going to be able to make that shift. So how do you deal with that? Or do you sell the company? Go, you know what? We've got all this maintenance contract. So coming back to the cash flow from the maintenance contracts buys time to address the how do we adapt question. First being, do we develop our own? So do we do new technology? Do we sell the company? Do we shut down? Those are the three real options. Cash flow buys time to do that. If it's sell, it buys time and provides value, because really the only value of the company in terms of selling it was the net present value of the maintenance contracts, which was significant. The third option is we just call it good and wrap it up and shut down the company and continue to honor the maintenance contracts, shut down everything else. When the maintenance contracts wind down, then the company's finished. What would you do? I'm intentionally pausing. Think about that. Well, here's the decision, which was sell. It sold to an organization that was interested in maintenance contracts. They bought the maintenance contracts, closed down the plant. 300 people lost their jobs. The campus that we worked on is now a shopping mall. I can show you a photo of it. I won't, out of respect for the company, because we all participated in those decisions. And I'll tell you what, that to me was gut wrenching to know that 300 people were going to be out of work. I took it very personally, even though it happened before I was before it was on my watch, so to speak. That they'd gone from 1,100 to 300. Right, it's 800 families losing a source of really good income. They're in a high-tech manufacturing environment, pays very well. Typically 40% more for manufacturing versus service industry. So local economy, families, there's a big impact there. Took that very personally. In fact, at the time, I was being told by one of the executives in our one-on-one meetings, he's like, look, don't take this so personally. He's like, how could I not? It's just business. Well, business is people. And I know you as a leader, as an owner of a company, as an owner of a company, take that personal because it affects you. Big corporations, it gets impersonal. Maybe that's not such a good thing. Maybe if we took it more personally, we would make better decisions. It still bugs me to this day, not like it did. That ate at me at first because, like, I didn't. Here's what ate at me: I was not successful in influencing the thinking of the chief engineer and the thought process and direction of the leadership team to consider things that provided more options than they were looking at. That there could have been more options on the table. Would the outcome have been different? Maybe, maybe not. But at least it would have been part of the consideration. So, what's the consideration with your company? Are you going to find yourself suddenly blindsided with obsolescence, like the use case here did, and faced with, well, we either need to adapt. Do you have the cash flow at that point to do it and enough time? Or do we sell? Are you in a strong enough financial position to be able to sell well? Or is it going to be a fire sale because you just have to get out and cut the losses, cut the red ink? Or are you going to be so heavily boxed in a corner that you really have no choice but to wind it up, call it good, throw in the towel, shut your company down? Hope you never get there because it's a gut-wrenching experience. So let me know in the comments. What do you see? Do you think this is all wrong thought process, doesn't apply to the current AI environment? Or where are you in that? What do you see in your company when you're applying those questions? 2 questions, right, that lead to those 3 options. First one, what is your unique value in the marketplace? Second one, what happens if and when that becomes obsolete? And then when it does, do you adapt? What does that look like? Do you adapt? Do you sell? Do you shut down? Look forward to hearing your comments. And for more in-depth discussion, if you'd like, on me, cup of coffee, 20 minutes, virtual coffee over Zoom, click the link below. Schedule a meeting. We'll talk about your specific situation in depth, and I'll share some more experiences that I think will be helpful. So thanks for being part of the journey. We're going to have part 3 in our next broadcast. And welcome to our new AI agent colleagues that are listening in. Appreciate you. And we'll see you next time.